People will sell you the fantasy, but when you get to the reality, you will understand that it was so much harder than what you thought it was going to be. So be careful, because the fantasy creates an expectation. And if you live in expectations, you will constantly get hurt, you'll constantly get knocked down, and you will not like the outcome. Today, I want to dive into my style of training, my style of nutrition, and I kind of want to give you guys an idea of really what it is that I do. You probably have an idea if you've been following me, if you have looked at some of the things that I really, really love in terms of methods and strategies, but I figured if I can give you a little bit more and context to it, maybe this can help you out. So the way that I see health is there's 3 pillars. There's training, there's nutrition, and there's the mindset, right? Mentality. And so when we kind of touch on the training, the way that I see training is that I want to do something that is going to challenge me. It's going to test me. It's going to give me the results that I'm really looking for. So I do want to get stronger, so I do strength training, but not just any type of strength training, because a lot of people want to get strong, but what does that really mean? Now, for me, there's really 2 things that I always want to be able to do. One of them is a pull-up and the other one is a power clean. The reason why I like both of those is because they demonstrate strength and power. Strength is different to power because power is something that you can generate from whatever it is that you have, like your mass. So power is something that I always want to be able to have, something that I've always wanted even when I was a professional athlete. And it really mattered to me because if I was powerful, then I knew that I could be fast. I knew that I could be effective. And strength sometimes can be slow. So if you're carrying too much mass, then obviously you can actually be slow. So this is why it's good to have a balance. So I like a strength to weight ratio, a power to weight ratio. In other words, I probably live around 57 kilos, which is about 128 pounds, but I can squat almost double. I can power clean that, and I can do multiple pull-ups because that's what matters to me. Now, I am fully aware that that may not be what matters to other people. So it's important to know what you want for yourself is truly the most important part. Not what the famous person that you follow can do. It's about what you want for yourself. So I really want to be able to do pull-ups, and I started just like anyone else with a band on an assisted pull-up machine. There was no difference, right? I wanted to do it, so I went and practiced it. I just did 3 sets of 10, 3 times a week until I was able to do 1 pull-up on my own with no assistance. So if you're someone that wants to be able to do a pull-up, the easiest way to do it is to add volume, sets, reps across a week. So if you think about it, I did 90 across the week. If you can honestly just add that up and you do it over the course of probably a month, 2 months, maybe even 3 months, and you constantly make it a little bit harder, bit by bit, 1 rep after the other, after the next set, you're going to get a pull-up. There's not really a magical kind of like pill for it. It's just doing more of it. And so I always really just went in and I was like, well, I'm going to use this band. And then I would, get a less resistance band. So it would not help me as much. And then I would use that one. And I just continued, right? It just comes down to consistency. If you want anything in life, be consistent. If you want to run into flaws and you want to run into plateaus, then be inconsistent. That's really how simple it can be. So I really wanted to be able to do pull-ups. Now I can do them. And yes, I go through waves where I can do more or less, or, maybe I didn't do as many, but I always want to be able to do a few because I think pulling your own body weight, honestly, it's impressive to me. I feel like I can use it at any point. I like it. That's why I do it. Now, the next thing is a power clean. Now, if you have never done weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting in particular, you're missing out because power cleans in particular are one of the best Olympic weightlifting movements that you can do that are going to give you so much for every aspect of it. From the standpoint of it's a hinging-based movement, it's a power-based movement, it's a timing, speed. There's so many good factors to it. And that's why I like doing it. It also it's a challenging movement because you're really asked to do multiple things at the same time. You're asked to do kind of a deadlift into a quarter squat and then create the timing and the speed and move an object from the ground to your shoulders. There's nothing better than to do that. I'm fully aware that a lot of people don't care to be able to do that. And that's totally cool. But again, for me, I want to be able to be powerful. And that's a movement that I feel like kind of encompasses all of it too, because it's, almost combining a squat and a deadlift all at the same time. So I really like it and I practice it and I try to do it as often as I can. Now, outside of those, I always think about functional movement. And when I say that, I mean functional movement is like squatting, deadlifting, pulling, pushing, carrying, things like that. Anything that you feel you could transfer or translate over into everyday life. And that's what functional movement is. This is why I don't really care for bodybuilding. I don't really care for isolation, because to me, I can't really translate those over. I don't really care how much someone can bicep curl. I don't really care how much someone can, tricep push down or French press or whatever. I really do not care for it. Now, if you are someone that's trying to get on a stage and flaunt your muscles, that might be the method for you. That might be what you need to do in order to get you on the stage. But if you are someone that's just trying to get fitter, healthier, stronger, more powerful, then why would you train that way? Bodybuilding is a sport, and in order for you to become a good bodybuilder, you need to train bodybuilding. So for people who are not trying to do the stage, for people who are just trying to go to the gym for everyday life, it makes zero sense for you to do bodybuilding. It actually makes more sense for you to do functional training, because you're getting in and out of a car, you're picking things up off the ground, you're carrying groceries into your house. Like, it makes more sense for you to do strength and conditioning, and in that, being functional training. And in that, compound lifting. Compound lifting is bigger muscle groups all at the same time. This is where most people get this wrong. So they go to the gym and they just do their curls and their lateral raises and think they're going to get fit and healthy. It's not going to work that way, right? So think about what it is that you want. If you're a runner, you should be mostly doing single leg movements, because running is single leg based. If you're a cyclist, you should be doing more power based movement, right? If you're a swimmer, you need to be doing like upper body focused movements, right? If you are someone that just wants to be all round, then wouldn't you just do a little bit of everything? Because a little bit of everything makes you diverse. It makes you adaptable, makes you flexible. It makes you a better version of you. So for me, that's what I wanted. And that's what I've always wanted, and I stick to. So I work out 5 days a week for an hour. If I get the time, I'll add an extra session. And it would only be on the weeks that truly it aligns and it works. There's no consistency to my second session, but there is consistency to how many sessions I do. I love doing 3 days on, in other words, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 1 day off or an active recovery, then 2 days on, which is Friday, Saturday, and then 1 day off, which is Sunday. When I do this over the course of time, it just starts to add up, right? Across the month, I've done 25 to about 25 sessions, right? And then that's a lot of time. And I used to train a lot more than that. I used to do 40 hours a week. Now I do probably 5 to 6, and that's plenty for me. So I used to do a lot. And that's where it kind of gets me into this idea of like people that are like, I don't want to overtrain. I'm like, you don't even know what overtraining is. Right? Doing 1 hour a day, 5 days a week or 4 days a week is not overtraining. You're just weak and you're slow and you're soft. So overtraining, you would have to do hours and even more hours on that. So when I say overtraining, you're probably looking to have to do at least 40 hours plus of and limiting your sleep and recovery. So most of the time people don't even know what overtraining is, to be honest with you. So if you're one of those people that have heard others talk about it, they probably don't know what they're talking about. Especially online, because a lot of people are like, you don't need to work out more than 4 days a week. You're overtraining. It's just easy for people to talk that kind of smack. So don't listen. Now, again, going back to the training, know what your goals are and be specific. So if someone says, I just want to get stronger. Okay, what does that mean? What does being stronger look like for you? Is it being able to do push-ups? Is it being able to squat more, deadlift more? What does being stronger look like? Does it mean that you want to be able to pick up your kid when they weigh 35 pounds? What exactly does it look like? Because unless you can specify it, you cannot measure it. So a lot of the people have this vague, blasé goal of, I just want to be stronger. I'm sorry, but that is not a measurable goal. If you want to drop some percentages of body fat, great. Drop the percentage of body fat by going, I'm currently at 23%, I want to get down to 15. I'm currently at 35%, I want to get down to 20. Like, have some specific goals in mind. People don't have goals like really written down. And then they get lost going, I don't know really what I'm chasing. I'm just trying to be better. How do you measure someone that's just trying to be better? That doesn't make any sense in itself. So look at your training and go, okay, now that I have my goal and I know what I want, the next step is, am I doing what I meant to do in order for me to reach it? Or have I just kind of fallen into the cracks of following some person out there that looks fancy? Be very careful not to fall into the cracks of those people that are showcasing something that isn't attainable and isn't real. A lot of influencers out there, they can spend hours and hours in the gym. I'm not going to lie, they can make themselves look that way because they have the time. For everyday people, they're busy. They're busy leading a life. They're busy having a job, maybe running a business. They're busy. They don't have hours to spend in the gym. But I'll tell you what they do have. They have time to work on their nutrition. So you are no different because you're 100% in control of what goes into your mouth. So it's very important. Now, when we go over into nutrition, I like to just eat more of a macros-based approach. So in other words, I look at how many calories I'm going to be eating across the day, and then I break those down. So I'm looking at how many carbs, fats, proteins I'm going to be eating, and I align that with my body fat percentage. So I look at my body composition, and if I'm somewhere between 10 and 12%, then I'll go, okay, well, I've got this much muscle, so I'm always going to hit at least that bare minimum of muscle. Then I might try to eat a little bit more because I've trained harder and I've stimulated my muscles and I want them to recover, so I'll eat a little bit more in protein. My carbohydrates will always match minimum my body weight. I do not undereat on carbs. I don't believe that that's necessary. I think that most people undereat on carbs or overeat on carbs. It's usually one or the other. Very rarely have I met someone that actually hits their carbohydrates right. Usually it's like they're way too low or way too high. They're very rarely it's actually where it needs to be. So again, if you fall into the trap of all these people going, you don't eat carbs, you don't need carbs, you don't need all this, like be very, very skeptical about what you listen to, because a lot of the time people are trying to sell you, again, on what's fancy and what the fantasy is. That's where most people will give you all of that bullshit just to try and maybe sell you on something. So I always match it. Now, I don't eat a lot of fat because I know my body doesn't respond really well to fat. Your body might respond well to fat, but a lot of the time we don't need too much. Most of the time we don't need too much. If you were to follow one specific diet, I guess, if we want to call it a diet, is I love the Mediterranean diet. Like I love the idea of the Mediterranean concept because a lot of the foods, they're really high quality foods if you think about it. And a lot of the time it's not too much. It's just enough. There's protein in it. There's carbs and fats in it, but most of it is coming from natural sources. And that's essentially how I like to eat. I like to eat in a way that's very natural, organic, whole foods. Most of my carbohydrates comes from fruit, vegetables, potatoes, sprouted oats, and rice. I don't really eat outside of that. And then my proteins come from all protein sources. The only thing I don't really like is tofu and some fish. But most of the time I will eat pretty much everything. And my fats typically come from avocado and oils. Rarely will I kind of go down the route of the other stuff. It just doesn't vibe with me that well. So then I'll kind of like think about that's what my nutrition looks like. Now, nutrition changes. So if you're training harder, your nutrition will change. If I'm going to run more, I probably need to eat more carbs. If I'm going to lift more, I need to eat more protein. So it's good to do like reevaluate, and reevaluation is absolutely critical. So every 4 weeks, reevaluate. What's my training like? What is it doing? What do I need to do differently? Do I need to eat differently? Do I need to train differently? Do I need to sleep more? Do I need to sleep less? How's my stress? Look at like the questions that you can be asking yourself so that you can maximize yourself. Now, when we go into the mentality side of things, this is absolutely key. So everyone thinks that mindset is everything. They're right, because mindset is everything. Now, when it comes to, you really honing in on what it is that you want, what's the one thing that people struggle with the most? Consistency. They then, procrastinate and maybe they fall short and things like that. The best thing that you can do is truly have the goal, have the approach to the goal, and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. You will land somewhere. But if you ask yourself questions like, why am I not seeing any progress? What have I done differently? What's missing for me? Is there anything I need to add that maybe I'm not adding right now? Am I having too much of this or not enough of that? Asking yourself questions is going to help you understand why maybe a plateau is hit, maybe why progress isn't being made. You could ask the question, who do I need to work with for me to actually get the results that I want? That's a great question. I know that when I've hired coaches myself, I've literally excelled in what I wanted because they knew what they were doing in the areas that I didn't, or they knew how to make an adjustment when I didn't. Coaches, that's what coaches are for. I think a lot of us think that we can do it on our own, but I can share with you that if I haven't been able to do it on my own and I'm pretty damn disciplined, then what makes you think that you can, right? Coaches are there to support you, to provide a path, to look in at the things that you're not seeing. That's why they overlook you. That's why they kind of look at what's going on. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of the times there's not necessarily the best coaches out there, but you can actually find some really great ones. The people that I work with, I really focus in on what they want. So everybody's different. Just know what you're looking for. Now, I love giving people some really key components to get them into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest system. If you're in that system, the beauty of being there is it helps you recover, regenerate, and recalibrate. If you do that, you can get back into your fight or flight. You can literally get better at all the things that you need. So the eustress that you want is great stress, but then we need to also factor in that a lot of the time people have like too much stress, too much de-stress, and that's not good stress. If you want eustress, great. So focus on like what you need to do for your mentality to make you better. And what that looks like is always going to be different. So I say that because I think that when we can hone in on getting into that parasympathetic nervous system through breath work, through meditation, through journaling, through anything else that's out there, you're going to be able to calm down your brain. You're going to be able to like desensitize yourself so that when you go out and you do your training, when you go out and do your day-to-day jobs and your responsibilities, that all that kind of like chaos kicks up, you're better equipped. You're more adaptable. People are just not adaptable enough in today's society because everyone lives in either fight or flight and chaos, or they think that they have to do nothing just to slow down. And it just doesn't work like that because then you're living in extremes. You're either super high strung and you're just all the time on, or you're kind of too low and you don't, and then when something hits you, you're just like flying off the handles. So it's just important for that from that standpoint. I always focus in on less screen times at night. I always focus in on less screen time in the morning. So my day needs to start and finish kind of the same, you know, slowly working in and slowly working out. When you have like a really strong routine, oh my gosh, you can change so much for yourself. And I understand that all routines need to be different. They're not always going to be the same. Sometimes we just have to be adaptable. Again, I think people live in extremes too much. They think that they have to have it all figured out. And I just don't know if that is attainable. I don't know if that's possible. And anyone that can honestly like promise you at all, I don't know if they'll ever be able to fulfill on that promise. Because let's be real, like life is always going to change. You're always going to change. But we always seek like this, I don't know, like you're always trying to seek the answers in everything outside of yourself. But if you just looked inwardly, you would probably have majority of the answers, at least 80, 90% of them, you know the answers to. You know, why have you taken so long to take action on something? Ask yourself, what have you been stopping yourself from achieving? Why have you been like procrastinating on it? What are your excuses? And where do those excuses come from? Because all excuses are the same. If you think about it, everyone out there, that's why there's like, if you were to go on Google, what's the main excuse as to why someone doesn't start the gym? They're like, well, I don't feel confident enough. You know, like confidence comes from going to the gym. Confidence comes from you actually doing the work. So excuses come from somewhere and they're not like unique. You know, someone that's just like, no, I have, this is a real excuse. When I hear someone say this is a real excuse, I'm like, no, this is your idea of what a real excuse is, but it's truly not a real excuse. So it's important for you, again, to understand that the more that you can hone in on what you want for yourself, if it is that you want to go and do a specific diet, then stick with it and be with it for long enough to see results. And then look at what you need to do differently. If it's going to be that you want to train a certain way for a sport like bodybuilding or maybe a different sport, then stick with it and see it through. Don't cut it short because you're going to hate yourself if you don't actually follow through on something. So see it through to the point where you're like, this is for me or this isn't for me. You're going to learn either way. And it really frustrates me when people are like, I don't want to fail. I'm scared of failing. I'm like, do you know the definition of failing? Because the definition of failing is not trying in the first place. And again, if you're going to go and just think that you just won't do something just in case you fail, like you failed not trying. It wasn't that you failed because it didn't go the way that you thought it was going to go. That's you just not meeting your expectations. That's what that is. But you learned something. You gained something from the struggle. You took something out of the obstacle. It just didn't go the way that you wanted it to go. So kind of like take a step back, look in, right? Zoom the camera out and actually go, what am I not seeing here? What am I not seeing that maybe I should start seeing? And just do your absolute best not to buy into the fantasies. People will sell you the fantasy, but when you get to the reality, you will understand that it was so much harder than what you thought it was going to be. So be careful, because the fantasy creates an expectation. And if you live in expectations, you will constantly get hurt, you'll constantly get knocked down, and you will not like the outcome, because the outcome will not be what you thought it was going to be. So be very mindful, right? Take ownership. Take ownership of your own life. Take ownership of like what you're doing for yourself. Like I take ownership and I put the best people in my corner to help me to get to where I want to go. That's how I take ownership. I take ownership in what I'm going to do every day. Does it always go according to plan? Probably not. But I'm going to be real with you guys. If you're going to live in a place where you watch all these people out there and they somehow have it all laid out and perfect, it just doesn't work like that. All right? It's all a fucking facade. And I can tell you right now that it's all a joke. So anyone that you see online, they're showing you their best, they're showing you their achievements, they're showing you their success. Guarantee you it's not like that. I'm sitting here telling you that there's days that suck in the gym for me. I'm telling you that sometimes I don't want to eat clean. Sometimes I don't want to actually show up, but I do it anyway. And I do it anyway like 85% of the time. So you see the 85%. You don't see the 15% where it's like it's a negotiation in my mind. You don't see that. But everyone out there has it. And most people are not doing as well as they kind of perceive themselves to do. So just listen to that. And know that. And I really hope that I can give you a bit more truth, because I think the best thing that I can offer the world is just more truth. There's so many people out there just bullshitting the shit out of everyone. And I just really want to come in here and I want to share the truth because I see it. I'm around it. That's the crazy part. I'm around it. And I have to separate myself from people. And I'll tell you right now, sometimes when you have to separate yourself from people, it's fucking lonely, because you don't want to be like them. You don't want to go and like pretend like everything's just a dream or it's just a walk in the park. It's just not like that. And I share that with you because I bet you there's people in your life that you want to separate yourself from. And you're probably a little scared to. But you know what? The way that I see it is, if someone's doing something that I disagree with and that it challenges my values and I don't align with it, then it's more worth it to me to let them go and separate. It really is. A lot of the time I will support as much as I possibly can until it gets to a point where I'm like, this no longer serves anyone. Anyone, not just me, but anyone. So understand that your environment is very, very important. Who you want in your corner matters. So if they're supporting you and they're challenging you in a way that helps you grow, they're the right person. If they're only supporting you, probably not. If they're only challenging you, probably not. And I hope that that's helpful for you guys. I hope that you can take a lot out of this and you can take some action on some of the things that I've said that's going to be right for you, that you're going to be able to apply to your life. And just remember, guys, everything you want is on the other side of fear. So make a move, take action, because you're one decision away from a completely different life.